This is a Beautiful Mars podcast for Friday, July 14th, 2017, from HIRISE, on board NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. This week, we look at Mars in all of its haunting beauty. This image shows one of the millions of small craters and their ejecta material that dot the Elysium Planitia region of Mars. The small craters were likely formed when high-speed blocks of rock were thrown out by a much larger impact, about 10 kilometers in diameter, and fell back to the ground. Some of these blocks may actually escape Mars, which is how we get samples in the form of meteorites that fall to Earth. When one of these high-speed blocks impacts the surface, it makes what is called a secondary crater. These secondaries can form dense chains or rays, which are radial to the crater that formed them. This intriguing surface texture is the result of rock interacting with water. The rock was then eroded and later exposed to the surface. The pinkish, almost dragon-like scaled texture represents Martian bedrock that is specifically altered into a clay-bearing rock. The nature of the water responsible for the alteration and how it interacted with the rock to form the clay remains poorly understood. Not surprisingly, the study of such altered rocks on Mars is an area of active investigation by the Mars science community. Understanding such interactions and how they happened helps scientists to understand the past climate on Mars and if the red planet ever harbored life. A close-up image shows the exposed bedrock of an ejecta blanket of an unnamed crater in the Mare Serpentis region of Mars. Ejecta, when exposed, are truly an eye-opening feature as they reveal the sometimes exotic subsurface and materials created by impacts. This ejecta shares similarities to others found elsewhere on Mars, which are of particular scientific interest for the extent of exposure and diverse colors. The colors observed in this picture represent different rocks and minerals now exposed on the surface. Blue in high-rise infrared color images generally depicts iron-rich minerals like olivine and pyroxene. Lighter colors such as yellow indicate the presence of altered rocks. The possible sources of the ejecta is most likely from two unnamed craters. How do we determine which crater deposited the ejecta? A full-scale image shows numerous linear features that are observed trending in an east-west direction. These linear features indicate the flow direction of the ejecta from its unnamed host crater. Therefore, if we follow them, we find that they emanate from the bottom of the two unnamed craters. If the ejecta had originated from the top crater, then we would expect the linear features at the location of our picture to trend northwest to southeast. The jagged, sawtooth dichotomy over a grainy texture seen in this close-up image reminds us of a scene from an old silent horror movie. Stark and unnerving, like that time between dusk and darkness as the campfire burns out. Was that something moving you saw through the canvas of your tent? Malaya Planum is a polar region in the southern hemisphere of Mars, directly south of Hellas Basin, which contains the lowest point of elevation on the planet. The region contains ancient volcanoes of a certain type, referred to as paterae. Patera is the Latin word for a shallow drinking bowl and was first applied to volcanic-looking features with scalloped-edged calderas. Malaya is also a low-lying plain known to be covered in dust. These two pieces of information provide regional context that aid our understanding of the scene and features contained in our image. The area rises gradually to a ridge, and light-colored dust is blown away by gusts of the Martian wind, which accelerate up the slope to the ridge, leading to more sharp angles of contact between light and dark surface materials. Of course, in keeping with age-old stories of the supernatural powers of creatures of the night, Martian dust devils are able to move with impunity all the way up the slope. The telltale traces of their passage are visible as haphazard dark streaks crossing the area, like specters drifting through the night. Shadowy, haunting Mars. You can see these images and more at uahirise.org.